What's going on? Let me just check my settings here. Audio. All right. I have to get my audios. Bear with me just a minute. Yeah. All right. I think I got it sorted out. It's because I'm using fucking Bluetooth. I'm on my headphones right now. All right. Yeah. Everything's set up. All right. Very good. Very good. Pardon the interruptions. All right. Welcome to the Doms Academy. Walk. Got a show set up for you guys about the 5 things that men do that males do not do. Males do not do. What's up, Duke of Lux? Uncle Guns, thank you for posting those, rigging those things up for me. All right. All right. So, talking about the 5 things that men do that males do not. And it's real simple shit, you know. It's real simple shit. You know, because males, as you know, you guys do like a shit ton of things. You do like a lot of extra things. And, you know, thinking that you can like fill in all kinds of gaps when it's really simple shit. There's really simple shit that you can do with regard to women. As always, if you have any questions or anything like that, pop them into the chat, or if you'd like, you can email me at justin@thedominanceacademy.com. Go to my website, thedominanceacademy.com, and you can sign up for coaching there. You can buy call packages, and I believe a lot of my stuff is still on discount for the holidays. And if you want to get one-on-one coaching, just send me an email and we can talk about the details there. Yeah, and grab my book, How to Be a Fantastic Lover. It's good shit. All right. It's good shit. All right, so the 5 things that men do that males do not. All right, the first one here is men never qualify for a woman. All right. And this comes up in a lot of different ways. But, you know, males will constantly try to qualify for the woman, right? And this is easy stuff. It's stuff you heard like a lot, all the time. But despite its frequency, you do this over and over and over again. And fucking hell. Hold on a second. Probably Amazon deliveries. It's the holidays, you know. So it's never qualify for a woman, right? But this it sounds simple, right? Like don't do this shit, and you're like, yeah, don't qualify for these bitches. But it's a little bit deeper than that, right? Because in order to break free of wanting to qualify for a woman, you actually have to sever your ties to pussy. Like you have to sever your desire for that little wet hole. And it's easier said than done, right? It's something that you have to come to. You can't just be like flip a switch and be like, okay, I don't like pussy anymore. And it's not about not liking it. It's more about desire. Okay, liking something and desiring something, it's two different things. And when you have desire for something, that's when it shifts. That's when there's an issue of leverage, right? That's when we've got an issue of leverage. And leverage is when, you know, basically one person has power over another person based on their desires. And so by you guys even having this desire, like, oh, I really want pussy, or like having this having this thirst for it, or this hunger for pussy, you've given your power to women even before you're in front of a woman. Even before you've met a woman on the street or met a woman for a date or decided, all right, I'm going to go out and talk to girls or whatever. You've already handed over your power. You've shifted it completely onto the woman's side because you have this desire. Okay? Now you guys may be saying, well, duh, that's stupid. That's part of my natural thing as a man. Like, yeah, I'm a guy. I want to fuck. And I'm not saying that you are completely void of enjoyment of pussy and things of that nature. Okay, everybody knows like fucking's fun. Cool. All right, fine. But I'm just talking about the desire and how it affects your behaviors, because it will. It will affect your behaviors. It'll affect the way you talk to her. It'll affect the way you move around her, the choices you make. It will all be augmented by this desire, okay? Not appreciation, but desire. Once again, hold on. Pardon me. Yep. Christmas presents. My girl and I got into archery, so as a Christmas present, I bought her a bow. So that's gonna be fun. But anyways, so it's this desiring, right, that will change your behaviors, right? So like, let me just pull up this guy's this client of mine, his messages. Okay, so he was he was talking to this girl on a dating app and asking about an ethnicity, and she's like, asked him something, and he's like, well, what I find important is like a woman who can cook. And she starts showing him like a bunch of photos and things like that. And just to joke around, I told him that I think that my immediate reaction was to just play around and doubt that the pictures are real, and telling her that like, oh, those look good, but it looks, are you sure it's not AI? And then getting her to defend her position. And I'm telling him that he can straight up like tell a woman, or I'm sorry, this was a previous girl, so she was getting a little bit like shit testy with him, and I said, you can tell her how and how not to treat you, okay? And he said that, he's like, oh, so you can straight up tell a woman and how she's not allowed to speak to you. She may not like it, but who cares? right? If your self-preservation of your integrity is more important, pussy just isn't worth it. It's not worth your integrity being bent or dented or completely shifted. Okay. And he writes, he's like, hey, he says, hey, I'm not sure how you speak with other men, but that's not how you talk to me. If you want me in your life, this needs to stop. And I'm like, yeah, something along those lines is exactly what you are entitled to say. You have to not just assume that people are going to be in a certain way. You have to instruct people how to talk to you, how to treat you, right? And saying something like that, knowing that I could either, and this is what he's saying, knowing that I could either have her comply or she can bite back and then I just disconnect from her completely. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Because it says, I'm more important to myself than you are, so much so that I'm willing to drop you where I found you. Right. And he really liked that idea. Right. So I went further and I said, imagine if women didn't have pussies, if it was smooth like a mannequin. You could have this mindset very easily, correct? So it comes down to your desire for pussy that gives women control and prevents you from cleanly acting as you want. So this is, sorry, I started out with the wrong message from him. So the whole idea that they've got this little thing that you desire gives them leverage. Okay, so once you start controlling that section of your mind, then that leverage is pretty much the only leverage they have. And then you can start communicating, operating the way you want. And you can tell these women exactly how you are. Now, this is coming from the caveat that you don't have nice guy bullshit, that, you don't have codependency bullshit, that, there's a lot of other psychological things. But that's why men can say these things and males can't, because men, if you have a past that's developed some sort of problems like nice guy syndrome, you've dealt with them. All right, so you can't be a man and have nice guy syndrome at the same time. It just doesn't work. Okay, so the next one here, men seek respect and do not seek love. All right, that's pretty much the only thing that a woman can give you. All right, I mean, aside from her uterus, if you are aiming to have children. All right, so aside from children, the only thing that a woman can give a man, right? And I'm not talking males, I'm talking men. The only thing that a woman can give a man is respect. That's his only form of currency. That's it. And this also goes back to pussy, right? Pussy is nothing that can move me. It has no real value to me, right? I'm not talking uterus, I'm talking pussy. Pussy has no real value to me. The only currency that I respond to is respect. That's it. Because if that's not there, nothing else matters. Make sense? What do you say here, Duke Lux? I would say leverage doesn't work for her unless you freely give away your power because you believe the nice guy route is the way to go. I'm not quite understand what you're saying, but men hand over their power all the time simply by desiring something they have. That's basically that simple. So continuing on, men seek respect, right? That is our only form of currency, because without it, anything else that a woman does becomes completely superfluous. It becomes bullshit, surface nonsense. And that's really the only way forward. Okay. But males, they will be seeking love, right? Because males, they haven't dealt with that stuff inside them. They haven't attended to their inner child wounds. Okay. Because a lot of times is when there is this turmoil from early childhood or early teens, what happens is the emotional state of the young man gets frozen at that point in time. So if that happened around, say, the age of 9, then his emotional state actually stays there. And then he grows, like his body grows, as we all do, and he becomes a grown man in body, but with the emotional development of a 9-year-old. All right. Now, he doesn't act like a 9-year-old, but the emotional needs of a 9-year-old. Okay. And this is where the problems ensue, because he learns to behave a certain way with mom in order to get those feelings of acceptance. And then as he gets older, he just starts to substitute in women in the place of where mom stood. Okay. And this is just not a great way to live. This is not how men live. Okay. It's not, it won't produce really good fruit. Okay. Unless she's just like, oh, I really like this nice guy who, serves me and panders to me and like is just some kind of unicorn that doesn't take advantage of that or isn't turned off by that. Okay. So, but for men, we're not behaving out of our childhood wounds and our childhood issues and shit like that. It comes down to respect. Okay. Respect for you as a man and respect for your program. Right now, if you guys have no idea what I'm talking about with a program, and most don't, okay, get in touch with me. I can help you sort it out. All right. I have a detailed list of how to sort this out step by step. It's not a short or an easy process, but in the end, you will have it. You will absolutely have a clear and concise program. All right. And it has nothing to do with sex. That's the thing. It has nothing to do with sex. Let me see what you're saying here, Dick Lux. What I meant is that if you are not influenced by the desire and you're able to detach, then her leverage shouldn't work. Correct. She literally has no leverage at that point. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, English isn't your first language. No problem, brother. Yeah. Yes. If you put a tamp down on that desire, basically sex is a woman's, or pussy is a woman's only leverage point. And then that throws out that whole adage, oh, women control the gateway to sex and men control the gateway to commitment. It's like, no, if you remove that desire portion, well, then men control the gateway to sex and commitment. Okay. And if you've, got a really great mind for leading and influencing and creativity and a good mouthpiece to go with it, now you're getting in her head and you're massaging that clip between her ears. And now you are controlling the sexual desire and pace within the interaction. Okay. So you have all the power. You have all the control. And if you've got a good moral compass, now we're talking, right? Because you're not going to be utilizing these Jedi powers for evil. You're not becoming a sociopath or some sort of psychopath. You're actually utilizing these things to lead towards greatness and building things, right? So, but that's details that don't belong in this show. Anyways, so seeking respect instead of love. And the reason why it's not love is because all the love that you need is supplied to the self by the self, right? So in order to get to that point, you have to filter through all the bullshit that's in your head from probably a long time ago that's preventing you from loving yourself and respecting yourself and honoring yourself, right? And so once that's completed, once that's dealt with, you no longer need to supply it from someone else. Makes sense, right? The whole reasoning behind why men are seeking love from women is because their cup is not completely full of self. It's not full of self-love. So they're looking for this extra supply from someone else. And when they get it, they feel fulfilled, right? They feel good. They feel fulfilled. And then when it goes away, like if the relationship stops or what have you, or even just like the fuck buddy stops or the marriage stops, now they're in some serious problems. Now they're in a lot of pain, and because there's a sense of loss. Okay. But as I've explained in many shows before, if your cup is full with self, that means that what she gives you isn't filling anything up. It's extra on top, like the whipped cream that's put on top of your hot chocolate, right? You remove the whipped cream, you've still got a full cup of hot chocolate. It doesn't detract from it. It's just an extra thing that you can enjoy, right? That's it. Okay, moving on to number 3. The third thing that men do that males don't is checking her behavior. Okay. I often talk about the 3 basic tools that men need to have: the axe, the compass, and the hatchet. You must have these tools with you all the time, constantly. Okay. Like you can't be like, oh, okay, cool. She's my girl now, so I don't need to use the hatchet and the compass anymore. No, you do. You will always have to check a woman. Just because a woman's on your program, and like, let's say you have a well-designed program, just because she's on it doesn't necessarily mean that she's going to be this perfect soldier robot, right? Even the most highly trained soldiers make mistakes, okay? And these guys go through rigorous training, okay? Sometimes they make mistakes too, all right? So we're still dealing with the biological. We're dealing with the psychological. So yes, mistakes will happen. She'll forget stuff. She'll forget some rules, and you'll have to correct them. She might have a bad day and her emotions get away with her and she raises her voice. You're going to have to check her. You're going to have to put that back into its place, okay? So, but it's not just about checking, right? This is where a lot of guys, it's incomplete, all right? Because checking is basically telling somebody where the boundary line is and saying, hey, you're not allowed to go over there. You can be over here, but you can't be over there. That's basically what checking is. It's just boundaries, all right? The problem is not informing someone what is acceptable. So the checking is saying this is unacceptable. The compass is what's necessary to allow someone to get the information of what is acceptable, showing them the way, right? So you can check the behavior and say, this is unacceptable. What I prefer, or what is allowed, is this. And you inform them very clearly and very simply of what's allowed. And men have no problem doing this. Okay. Why? Because, as I said to that client of mine, that maintaining the integrity of self, maintaining the integrity of your internal kingdom, and making sure that its form stays fine, right, and the way it should be. Men will never sacrifice that for the sake of keeping a woman around or keeping a woman happy. Okay? Especially if it's her behavior, like that's going to be upsetting these things, right? So never compromise that stuff, right? Because maintaining that internal structure, okay, what I call your constitution and your program, this is what really allows things to maintain a strong structure, okay? And it's like when someone comes in, that's when, well, I mean, you should be vetting before then and still vetting after, but it's maintaining that, all right? And you're never going to sacrifice that thing for the sake of somebody else. Like, you know, I heard a guy talk about this, and he's like, I don't care if I've been married for 20 years. Like, if she violates this stuff and doesn't take correction, she's out. And you have to be able to maintain this all the time. And this is where the axe is, all right? The axe comes into play for severing ties, okay? It's a potent tool, and you only need to swing it once because the weight of an axe does all of its own work, okay? You don't have to power through splitting a log. The weight of an axe and its sharpness will do it for you, really. You just have to start the initial momentum. And so in the same way, when someone has completely violated your high-level protocols within your program, right? So there's like some things that it's like, okay, that's not that big of a deal. That can be corrected. But there is an area of things that once stepped on, there's no going back. All right. And they're different for each guy, but there are definitely red zones. And if that area, if the red zone is violated, the only thing to do is just to utilize the axe. And there's no discussion, there's no deliberation, there's no going back and forth. It's just one swing and they're cut loose. And that's it. And it doesn't matter if it's a friend, a family member, a lover, a girlfriend, or a wife. It doesn't matter. Okay? It'll be difficult for sure. I'm not saying this is going to be easy, especially if, say, it's like been a friend of yours for 20 years, right? Or your wife of 20 years. But a violation that's that serious, there's no fixing it, right? No apology can fix a red zone violation. Okay? The only thing is just to extricate them from your life. And that's it. Okay? There's no second chances. They can't come back. Oh, I've changed. No. That's it. Like, once it's violated, it's been violated. I'm not going to forget. And you were informed of what all the rules were, but you did it anyways. Right? This is the mindset. And so again, it's maintaining that integrity above all else. You cannot sacrifice that or bend it or like kind of shift it a little bit so the woman can fit. No. She's flexible on her own. If she wants to adapt, she'll adapt. If she doesn't, she won't. And that's fine. And you just let her go. But yeah, it's about having the integrity of your internal systems as your top priority. Okay. But don't be one of these morons out here that tells themselves that they have this when you actually don't. Okay? Because what's really in place there is like maybe some vague ideas mixed with your emotions. That doesn't count. Okay? Like if you can't put it onto an Excel spreadsheet, you don't have shit. If you can't make a PowerPoint with it or a Word document with it, you don't have shit. All right? So if you want to sort it out on your own, you're perfectly capable of doing that. Sit down with a pen and paper or Google Doc or whatever and really sort out what your program is and make sure it's not some fantasy fucking thing that you think should be the case. Make it really the case that like, this is what I stand on. This is what I stand for. Okay. And really think about it because there's a lot of details that go into interpersonal, like interpersonal development and relationships and things, that you believe in. So don't rush through it. But if you want help, get in touch with me. All right. Number 4, and it ties into the other ones that men do, that males don't, is that self-respect over all else. All right. And it's tied in with pride, but not that like bullshit pride, right? That say like the Bible talks about. I'm talking about real pride, and it's tied in with self-love. All right. Having self-respect above all else, meaning you will not do anything or say anything that will compromise your self-respect, so that when you look back on what you said or what you did, you're not going, oh, fuck, that was stupid. I really wish I didn't do that. Or I really wish I didn't say that. All right. So it's having guided thoughts, guided words, and guided actions. Not being moved by impulse, not being moved by your instincts, right? Because sometimes your instincts are good and sometimes they're bad, right? But what doesn't move, what's not shifted, is a strong constitution and a strong program. These are not movable things. These are like hard documents, right? And filled with things that supposedly you believe in, right? So, self-respect above everything else. Because, say you're talking to a woman and she'll produce some kind of shit test, and because you really like her or you're interested in getting to know her, you'll put that aside, or she'll say something insulting, or she'll, and you mention, it's like, oh, I was just kidding around, like, can't you take a joke, right? And the guy's like, haha, okay, and he like falls into her frame, and next thing you know, like, you're operating within her world, okay? And just so you can stay close to the pussy or remain within proximity of potentially getting pussy, right? Like all this stuff, it revolves, or it's like always going back and connected to your desire for pussy. And I said this like a long time ago. I was on a show with Miles, and I said, on your side of the street, you're trying to make her come. And on my side of the street, I'm seeing if I can give her permission to come. There's a whole other huge difference between those mentalities, because I'm not looking to get pleasure, right? My pleasure comes from power. My pleasure comes from control, which is based on systems. It's not based on my feelings, right? And you get so much more out of your interpersonal dealings with women and your sexual dealings with women if you're coming from a place of creative power. What can I do in this situation? Like using your mind of how you can shift the balances of power, right? And it can become a very creative exercise where you're thinking about how words are used and scenes and things of this nature, where you can guide and maneuver your verbal interactions, her emotions, and the physical behaviors in a way that goes along with what you want, but ends up benefiting everybody involved, right? And you can't really think of this way if you are driven by getting physical pleasure. Because when you're in this mindset of getting pleasure from getting in her head, the bounds are limitless. When you're focused on physical pleasure, it's very limited, right? It's just limited to, the pleasure up to orgasm and the pleasure from orgasm. That's pretty limited, okay? But when you're gaining pleasure from the differentials that happen in power play, it's limitless. It's literally limitless what you can do and how far you can go, right? Especially when you start developing pressure systems, right? Where you're bringing about her desire and you're adding pressure, and then you're bringing up more desire and adding pressure, right? And then once there's pressure, kind of in the sense of like, if imagine someone's like got a fist and they're pushing their fist to you and you're holding their fist in your hand and they're really pushing, you can like let go and make their hand move in a direction. You can make it shift to the left or right because their energy is going in this strong direction. So with that input of energy, aka her desire, you can now shift it and make it go in various different directions. The whole like mindset around like things like Aikido and Aikijitsu and Wing Chun, they all operate off these principles, the soft martial arts. And you can utilize this in your dealings with women, but you can't do that if you're the one with the fist, wanting to put your energy like, oh, I want to put my energy into you. Right? I get it. It's part of your natural biological makeup, right? Yes, you want to penetrate, okay? But just shift it up, get it up from your dick and bring that desire for penetration into your mind. Get into having this fat fucking cock coming out of your brain and wanting to penetrate the pussy in her brain. That's where your primaries should be, okay? Then her body's just going to follow. You penetrate the pussy in her mind, her body and her emotions, her perceptions, then it comes into her beliefs. Everything follows behind that. It's incredibly powerful. Then your touch becomes that much more intensified, like tenfold. Let's see here. Guns, that's my favorite part. If you're not respecting yourself, nobody else will respect you. Example, telling yourself not to do something, then you do it anyways. Yeah, exactly. Right. So having self-respect over all else, it always boils down to the desire for pussy. Like, I don't even understand, like, how can you have respect for yourself if you're driven by pussy? If you are submissive to pussy, how are you gonna be dominant if you're submissive to pussy? Make sense of that. How are you going to lead if you're already being led before even meeting the woman? Make that make sense. You can't be led by anything except your constitution and your program, and maybe your religion if you're a religious person. You cannot be led by something and then claim to be a leader. All right. And I've seen this, right? So, I'm in the BDSM community. I've worked with DOMs before, and they too are often driven by pussy. They're pleasure driven. And so he's like, but then, he's like, yeah, but in the bedroom, I do this, I have this, and I'm in control of everything, right? It's like, yeah, that doesn't matter because you stepped onto her chessboard from the get-go. The very first step, before you even made connection with this play partner, you stepped onto her chessboard that was shaped like a big old pussy. And then once you got there, you're like, woo, look at all the control I have. I'm doing this, she's doing that, and all this. It doesn't matter. She already won. The game's over. The game was over before you even started. You get it? The game was over. I don't care what you're doing in the bedroom, what she's being told to do. You lost already. You're not in control. Her body is in control. And it's what's crazier is that it's nothing of her will. Right? It's not like she can like control with her mind like what her pussy, like it's just something that she has, like a toe, right? It's just a part of her body, right? There's no choices that she's making or anything like that. It's just a part of her body, and that is winning. So basically, you're putting her in a position of power that she isn't even trying to be in. And you already crown her king. Something to think about. Okay, the fifth thing that men do that males do not is having a system and an awareness of progress. Okay? Again, you can't have a system and you can't be aware of progress whilst you are focused on pleasure. I'm not saying never receive pleasure, never enjoy pleasure. I'm saying when you're focused on getting pleasure. Okay? I'm focused on maintaining my system. That's my primary focus because that's what allows everything else, including sex, to operate well. All right? But you need to have a system. And you look at anything else in life that has progress, that has growth, that has some sort of like substance, there's always systems around it. You look at like the best universities in the world that have been around for a very long time. They have the best system that produce the best students. Right? And people look at them and go, holy shit, that fucking university is awesome, right? It's like, yeah, because they've got a great system and they've got great people teaching the system. Okay? So if you want good relationships with women, and that includes a one-night stand, that includes seeing the girl once a week, that includes seeing a girl twice a month, or every day, it doesn't matter. You must have a system. You must have things that you follow that isn't her. She's like, oh, I want to do this. Okay, fine. Like, you're entitled to. Okay? Go do that thing. But over here, this is what we do. And you're welcome to come and go as you please. But if you want to progress, you have to follow the system. And if you follow the system, it comes with rewards. You remain consistent, you get consistent rewards. It's really simple, right? If you fuck up, you'll get corrected. If you don't take correction, you'll be removed. It's really simple, guys. But you can't think this way. You can't be, and people be like, oh man, that's cold. No, it's not cold. It just is, right? You're looking at it like, oh, damn, that's cold because you're contrasting it with warmth. It's neither. It's neither warm nor cold. It just is, right? Like if you look at it like a computer operating system, would you say it's cold or warm? No, it's neither. It just is what it is. Systems are just what they are. So if your focus is on developing and maintaining a system that has a certain method of not allowing things that will contaminate that system so that can continue in a proper direction, then you're never going to experience problems. Like, problems will only pop up just as like a flash, because people aren't perfect, right? Women are not robots, right? Even if she's great and she's on your program, she's not a robot still. She's human. But if a problem comes up or a mistake happens, it's just a blip. And then either she self-corrects because she knows she fucked up and she doesn't want to get a spanking or whatever, or you correct the system, right? Whatever it is, in whatever way you see fit that fits that problem, right? Some problems are big and they need a big correction. Some problems are small and need a small correction, right? Just saying, hey, you forgot to do this. And she's like, oh, I'm sorry, Daddy. Right? And that's it. Sometimes there needs to be a lecture. Sometimes she needs to write lines. Sometimes she needs a spanking, right? And for those of you listening going, oh my gosh, that sounds crazy, that's overboard. This is part of full disclosure. Right? Because I know my program, part of my program is my kink, is understanding my kinks, right? Which you should as well. So there's full disclosure when she comes in and you say, hey, this is what I do. This is what I like to do. Right? So you're not surprising her, or you're in something and you're not allowed to express a part of yourself for fear that she won't like it. Right? You want to get those things understood before you start anything. Just like in the same way, when you start a class at a university, there's no surprises. They give you the syllabus and they're like, okay, this is what's expected throughout the semester. This is what we're going to do, right? There's no surprises. So there shouldn't be surprises with your program either. So part of that is knowing what your kinks are. Okay. So I've got an impact kink, right? I've got a daddy little kink. This is just how I operate. And if she likes that, great. Come on in. I'll show you what it's like. I'll let you explore a little bit to see how things are. If you want to stick around, great. That's awesome. If you don't, no big deal. I don't want to force you to be something that you're not. So that when things are developed and say she makes a mistake or something along those lines, then it's not a big deal. If I say, all right, you screwed up, you're gonna get 20 whacks with a paddle, and that's completely understood. Now my girl, when she gets a spanking, it's not like something out of the blue. Like she's accepted that that's part of the program. If she screws up, she gets a spanking, and it's not going to be a nice one. All right. Thankfully, I don't have to do that very often because she's good. Which is, a little bit of a problem actually, because I enjoy spanking. So whatever, but thankfully she's not a robot. So these things do happen every so often. So yeah, those are the 5 things. I'll just review them really quick. Number 1 is never qualify for a woman. Number 2 is seeking respect and not love. Number 3 is checking her behavior. Number 4 is self-respect over all else. And number 5 is having a system and awareness of progress. And those 5 things are absolutely things that you'll find within men. You will not find these things amongst males. They'll actually have the opposite. They will qualify for women. They will seek love instead of respect. They will never check her behavior. In fact, they'll accept all of her behavior, including the bad behavior. They don't have self-respect over all else. They put all else in front of self-respect. And they don't have systems, nor are they aware of any progress. They're just happy to be there. Right? So that's pretty much it. So if you're just happy to be there, you've got problems, right? You need to work on. All right. If you're, your situation ends and you're fucking, leaving tear stains on your pillow over this chick that you knew for 2 weeks, you've got things that you need to work on. All right. If you know for a fact that you tell people you've got a program, but you actually don't, be honest with yourself and seek help. All right. I know a couple of guys that can actually help you design that specifically. I know Lucario can help with that. Shout out to him. And I know I can help you with that. So if you want to learn how to develop that, get in touch. As always, go to my site, grab a copy of my book, How to Be a Fantastic Lover. It will change your sex life. You will become a fucking god in the bedroom. I promise you. And it's the physical things. What's interesting is like a lot of guys, they'll think that being a good lover is actually something that has to do with physicality, and it doesn't. It really doesn't. Sure, women like a big dick over a small dick, right? Fine. But that's not the thing that really makes a good lover, right? It's not your stroke game. That's really not it either. Good sex for women is like 90% psychological. It really is. And once you start operating on my side of the street again, you'll come to understand this. And you're like, holy shit, like, I don't really need to be this like bedroom technician. You really don't. You don't need to be a bedroom technician. You need to be a mental technician. And because the power there is just tremendous. It is absolutely tremendous. And it is something, it's a sight to see, to observe a woman's spirit being dropped to her knees, or dropped to its knees. And not out of like, a sad defeat, but almost like a happy defeat. I don't know if happy is the right word, but it's certainly not a bad defeat, but she is defeated. And it's a surrendering. And it's an amazing sight to see. It really is. But you don't get there. You don't get to see this if she's if your mindset is all about the physicality. If it's all about just making sure that the things you do are getting her off, right? Because again, you're focused on sense pleasure, okay? Nerve endings and things of that nature. Nerve endings are limited, all right? But the mind is unlimited. You can go, the mind is so incredibly vast, and emotions are vast. Emotions are unlimited as well. And so really, if you're engaging with someone sexually, start thinking about how you can engage with her sexual mind, engage with the clit between her ears. This is where the power lies. Okay? Like I bring up that scene numerous times from Conan the Barbarian at the end when he makes his way into the lair of Thulsa Doom, and they're talking about the riddle of steel, right? And he's like, yeah, Conan, because Conan was bitching that he stole his father's sword, and he's like, yeah, when I was young, I was obsessed with steel and the riddle of steel, and thinking that steel is power, okay, or having a big dick or something along those lines, right? Having I guess what I would call surface level game, right? This is power. And he said, what is steel, or what is a sword compared to the hands that wields it? And he's like, look around you. And he's surrounded by all his like worshipers. And he looks up at this girl who's up on a cliff. And he's like, come to me, my child. And she just walks off the cliff and hits the ground and dies. Okay? And he's like, that's real power. Where he could move her. He moved her with his mind, with a little help from his words. This is real power, where you can bring a woman into various feelings of, excitement, lust, mystery, fear, anticipation, all sorts of stuff, but just with the power of your mind. And now her body is just following along. She's getting wet, and you've not even touched her yet. Okay? This can move into something so powerful where you can deliver orgasms without even touching her, or her touching herself. It becomes incredibly powerful. And then you go into that range of things where you're developing anchors, verbal anchors in her mind, where certain words will trigger her body, where her body's like, oh, I hear that word, that means arousal. And her body becomes aroused. It can be brought up to the point where you have what's known as OOC, which is orgasms on command. And look into it. It's a very real thing. Right now, it takes some conditioning and time and repetition, but it's absolutely possible. And you guys think, oh man, all I need is a good stroke game. No, not at all. You can give a woman great sex by just, being inserted, right? And don't move. This would be a good test. Don't move, and you just talk her into an orgasm. No movement of your hips, right? No stroking. You're just inside her, and you're talking to her. This can absolutely bring her to orgasm. And she'll be like, what the fuck just happened? You barely did anything. All right. But there's a lot of verbiage and things that go into building that up, right? You have to be a bit of a film director in that sense, So to understand how to do that, I'll mention this little tip. You go into Reddit, look for the subreddit called Gone Wild Stories. And yeah, it's Gone Wild Stories or Stories Gone Wild. I don't remember which. Look for both. And it's an erotic literature community. And look for the stories that are written by women because they tend to be longer. The ones written by guys, they're bullshit. It's just like basically a script for porn. It's just too short. But the women, what they do is they draw things out. There's a lot of anticipation. There's mental edging. Okay? You want to learn how to edge, right? Which requires having leverage. Again, if you've given her all the leverage by desiring pussy, you can't have any leverage to edge her mind. You've taken the only position, there's like this area for desire, and you've taken all of the space in the area of desire. There's no room for her. So she's like, okay, I'll just sit back, right? You shift, you get out so she can get in, and now she's in the seat of desire. And from there, now you have leverage, and now you can start messing with the tension and the pressure in that position that she's in. Now her arousal is going up and up and up and then down, up, down, up, down, up, down. You have complete control. You can't be here unless you get out of that seat. Right? Which requires having some self-fucking control. It goes into having some self-respect. How can you be self-respecting chasing pussy? Even in your mind. Oh, I want to get off. What are you, fucking caveman? No, you're a man. Be a man. Men are not driven by their impulses. You're better than that. You're smarter than that. Right? Because if you have an impulse, whoever has an access to that impulse has control over you. Right? You get what's the word? You get exploited. Right? Like those off-track betting, those guys who are just fucking addicted to betting on racehorses. Those off-track betting offices, they have complete leverage over these guys because their impulses are completely driven by the desire to gamble. So they get exploited. You have the same desire for pussy, you will get exploited. And then when your ass gets burned, you're going to blame them. Say, oh, you fuckers, you women, you're so evil. No, they're just women. They didn't even want to have leverage. You gave it to them. Trust me, women do not like having leverage. I mean, unless they have, in kink or there's something about having domination as part of their kink, and that's fine, but it's very rare. Very rare. The large portion of women, they do not want to be in control. They don't want leverage. They don't want to make decisions. They want to fall into the liquid of their femininity. They want to be brought up and swirled up into your container to go wherever it wants to go. Provided she feels safe, there's trust, there's vulnerability, and all that good shit. Okay? You can't develop that if all you want to do is just get your dick wet. And hey, you know what? You don't want to fuck around on this level of things. That's fine. That's totally fine, right? You just want to get your dick wet, fine. Okay. But you're not even getting close to experiencing what a woman can actually do. You're getting like 10%. You're getting 10% of what she's actually capable of feeling and expressing. Question. I learned something about stroke game a long time ago is about being unpredictable with your deep and shallow strokes. Do you have an opinion on that? Yes. Good sex, and this is from a man who has slept with thousands of women. Okay, I've got a friend who's a former porn star, and he said actually the best sex isn't stroking. It's actually a rocking sensation. Okay, so I'm gonna make like a rudimentary example with my hands. So most guys, they're like this, right? What you really want to do is this here and go like this, so that your dick is having a rocking, rubbing sensation instead of in and out. The in and out is good for you, okay? It's even better if it's got a rocking motion. So your pelvis is just kind of on hers and your dick is moving inside her, okay? And this is coming from a guy who slept with thousands of women, all right? So I'm going to trust his judgment. I'm not even close to his numbers. And I understand what he's talking about, and I've utilized it. Sometimes, but this is a weird thing about pleasure. Sometimes you just say, fuck it, and go for your own pleasure. That's where so it's weird. So it's like when you're out of the grasp, the grip of pleasure, you can more easily go into it. And there is this pleasure that she derives sometimes, when the mood is right, or you've created that scene for her to experience of her being sexually used. Because that's in the highest levels of women's desires when it comes to fantasy. Their number one fantasy amongst women on average is forced sexuality. Okay? I'm not going to say the R word, but you know what I'm saying. So that entails a bit of being used like a sexual object for your pleasure. And they can psychologically get off on this. So yes, at times, I'm just going to sexually use my woman. And she physically enjoys it, but the emotions around it are much more potent than the physical sensations. She likes how that makes her feel sometimes when I'm in that mood. Where I just flip her over and I'm just going to use you, right? And I quite like the mentality behind that as well. It's not about getting the nut. I'm sure I do, but and sometimes she has little orgasms as well, but it's more so generated by her emotions in the moment, not what's happening to her physically. But as far as just stroking, coming from my friend who's the porn star, he said that it's more of a rocking motion rather than in and out. Question. Evening, sir. What's up, ST? Hope you're good. On getting similar information, world audio apps like Dipsy also be beneficial, where they have 10 to 15 minute stories based on a variety. I'm really not sure what Dipsy is. I like Reddit. Yeah, this is possibly, experiment. I've never really had to. Just up and down is, circle movements. It's like, all right, it's too much for me. But I don't know what Dipsy is. But I like Reddit because it's just stories made by people, right? So if this is I don't know what that is, but if it's a place where you can experience stories written by women specifically, then do it, right? Or if it's audio, what have you. But the whole idea is that you want to get into this idea of creating a creative minds that can get your mind situated to the point of where you're like this director, like a film director, and you're creating scenes and you run them through your minds, and this develops ideas. So the process of creation will inspire you more creativity. So the more you create, the more creative you'll become. All right. And so it's just a self-perpetuating thing. You'll come up with ideas like, oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah. And so now it's like, you know, when my clients ask for suggestions, they're like, what would you say or what would you do? Shit just flies off the top of my head, because there's been so much stuff that I've put in there, so much that I've absorbed from stories and audios, like erotic audios. You can look into that. There's a lot of those things floating around, and creating my own short stories where there's so much in there that it's easy to just riff, right? And so you can riff in your planning, right? It makes planning a lot easier. And then in the moment when you're expressing yourself, it's all in there. You just let it flow. Or you don't have to think like, oh, what do I say? What do I do? Right? You just let it out. So, little tip for you to develop some of this stuff. There's other things that go into it, but as you know, as far as like the creative side, it's a good starting point. So, all right, well, I'm gonna let you guys go. I'm gonna see about what we're gonna have for dinner. I don't know what I want. All right, so as always, shoot me questions at justin@thedominanceacademy.com. Go to the website dominanceacademy.com. And from there, you can set up free calls in the description of this video or through the website to touch base with me. And we can talk about whatever you like. Anything you want to talk about with your relationships, dating, sex, marriage, it doesn't matter. All right. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for watching on the replay, and we'll check you on the next time.